January 10, 2023, sitting here with Tom Dwelle, looking at a book from his USAF flight school days in Bartow Air Base, Florida in 1959. Wanted him to run us through it quickly, which probably won't be quickly, but we'll give it a go. What do you got? Crack that sucker and tell us a story.
Well, the cover shows me, I would be 2 years old probably, 22 years old, and then Jack Graham in the middle. He was our instructor, and Aftab Alam Khan, Pakistani Air Force. This was a civilian contract flight school in southern Florida, and we had T-34 Cessnas, and we got, I think, 35 or so hours in that, learning basic flight and aerobatics and so forth, and then into the Cessna T-37 twin jet. Initially, we had A models.
You said T-34? You mean Beechcraft T-34s?
I did.
Okay, you said Cessna. So Beechcraft T-34 and then into the T-37 Tweed. Okay, got it.
Initially, we had T-37As with 920 pounds of thrust per side. Later, we got the B model with 1,050 pounds of thrust per side, and that was a real hot rod. A real hot rod. In the class were 4 Pakistanis and 3 or 4 Germans, and we had mostly aviation cadets. We were hardway guys, and then we had some student officers, and that was they were lucky. Our first fatality in the T-37 happened. A lieutenant. Things were pretty loose. This was September 1959, and he was out buzzing his girlfriend's college there on one of the lakes in Florida, and dragged a wing and did a cartwheel right in front of him. I bet she was really impressed. Aftab, my roommate, there were 4 of us in that in the hooch in our dormitory. It was really an apartment, and he was a good guy. He could really fly. Aftab went on to gunnery school at Luke in the F-86. His instructors were all F-86 Saberjet MiG aces. He got to be Top Gun in that course. He was a good stick. He went on to fly in both Arab-Israeli wars, flying the F-86 on the first one, and then the F-104 the second time. And they didn't write. The first time he was flying F-86 on the Pak-Indian Wars. Pakistan, Indian, and leading F-86s on the first one. The second one, he's flying the F-104, and he shot down the only air-to-air kill in either one of those 2 very short wars. And so he was the guy that did that, and he was a hell of a pilot. He flew the F-104 and was really quite famous for converting a 2-seated F-104 into RF 104 by flying upside down over the enemy airfield, supersonic, while his backseater looked straight up, which is now down with the camera, and which was really funny. He went on to fly the MiG-21 MF. That's the very latest Russian MiG. And in the second time he was in combat, he flew in both Arab-Israeli wars. And he went down into southern Syria and participated in the big war. In both wars, they had the Syrians and the Jordanians and the Egyptians had the latest model Russian MiG, the MiG-21 MF, and they actually got a kill on a Russian airplane I think it was in any case, it was an Israeli airplane. And he says, Tom, he said, I'm pissed off because we never got credit for that. To this day, they will not admit, Tom, that we shot down their airplane. I said, really, Aftab? What did they think about that? Oh, he says, it was awful. He said, they came up and bombed our base in Syria. They bombed our base until there was nothing left. There was nothing left, I tell you, Tom. It was just terrible. We went back home. And then they had another issue where they were going to take off and right over the Golan Heights, and they were going to kick everybody's ass down and run the Israelis out. Well, the Israelis, they knew they were coming, and by now they had F-16s, and they were down low level, and I think they ventured 20 or 21 airplanes in a mass gaggle up over the Golan Heights and down into the valley, and every one of them got shot down. And so they called back to Aftab back in Pakistan and said, Mr. Aftab, we're having this terrible problem. We're continuing to get MiGs now from Russia, but we have no more pilots, so you got to come and help us. He said, no, bullshit. He says, I'm having nothing of that. We want nothing to do with that. And we never went back. So that was the end. I said, well, you got into Syria. That was a covert deal, wasn't it? To sneak in there? And he said, yeah. I said, how'd you sneak in? He said, Tom, I went into Syria in a bloody ox cart. I said, oh my God, so you really snuck in. Wow. And the rest of this book is Steve and I. That was his certification as a Thunderbird. He's right standing behind his, actually in front of his F-4 Phantom. And I flew in a T-33 into Indian Springs. And then he took off and flew his demonstration flight. And there was a general there. I think it might have been Wade, General Wade, who was the center commander there at Nellis. And he took off, and he was the only solo pilot. They had a problem and only had one solo pilot now instead of two. But he was the solo pilot. He came smoking down the runway, inverted, and he was so low down the runway like this, and the wind was from this direction here, and he came down the runway like that, inverted, and the wind got in his knickers over here, and he got into the sand off to the right of the runway, and then when he pushed, it made the huge cloud of dust. I thought he'd crashed. I thought, God have mercy. He came down, and I went to the briefing and went to the day brief. And I brought that up, and I said, Stevie, don't ever do that anymore. And he said, Tommy, I never did. So I probably saved him. Then, of course, Dad, in our BT-13, this would be the 1953, 4, 5, something like that. And that was a lot of fun. Dad had 2 of those. And he tells the story that he bought both of them for $1,500 and sold one for $1,450. And he said, that's the best damn $100 airplane I ever owned, which was funny. That's his story. Now I'm off. So after he goes off to Luke to fly the F-86, and I went off to Perrin Air Force Base flying the Sabre jet, but this one had an afterburner. This is Air Defense Interceptor. See the radar on the nose there, and God, that was a wonderful airplane. Holy crap! Look at that big bubble canopy, wonderful. So he went off to we both flew F-86s, and by the time later on, we just kept crossing paths, and he goes off to China to learn how to fly the Chinese MiG-19, and I go off to the Royal Air Force to learn how to fly the Hawker Hunter, and moving up to the English Phantom. The Phantom flew the Phantoms with the Royal Navy, British Royal Navy, and the F-4 Phantom with the Royal Air Force on the tactical side. They called it the Phantom. The Lightning, got to fly that a couple of times, and they called it the Frightening and the Phantom. And so then off to combat I went. And
one point of note, there's an earlier video about you and your nuclear rocket, but there's I haven't seen this picture. Which one's the actual? That one's the...
That's the nuclear rocket. It was 832 pounds with 36,000 pounds of thrust, had a 1.5 kiloton warhead. It was an air defense rocket. A rocket, by definition, has no guidance. You aim it and shoot it off. A missile, on the other hand, has a guidance. Okay, so here you see it launching. You pull it up and launch it at a 60,000-foot target, a supersonic target. And we used to shoot these at drones, Mach 2 F-104 drones down in Florida. And that was a lot of fun. When that thing goes off, I'm telling you, it's like a religious experience. And
what are these other things?
These are Hughes GAR-4s. GAR-4As, that one. And this one, it's a radar-guided missile. It's a semi-active homing. You lock the radar onto the target, and then it follows the beam down and blows up the target. The other two are like the Sidewinder they're heat seekers. Back then, they're early. You turn around to the rear of the enemy bomber and you shoot a heat seeker right up their back.
So how many missiles or rockets could you put on that F-106 at one time?
You're looking at it right there.
Oh, that's one load for your flight.
2 heat seekers, 2 radar missiles, and the nuclear rocket.
And the big one. Wow. Okay.
We got ahead of us here.
Oh, we did. Sorry.
This was Vietnam, 1965. After I flew air defense during the Cuban Missile Crisis at Kincheloe Air Force Base, Michigan, where your sister Chris was born, I got to fly with a fully armed nuclear rocket. In the history of the world, probably I'm the only second lieutenant to ever fly with a fully armed nuclear weapon. I can laugh and say it was just a little practice nuke, 1.5 kilotons, but that's plenty. But it was an air defense weapon, and it was programmed to detonate 1,000 feet in front of and 1,000 feet below a covey of Russian airplanes, which we knew would be coming across over the North Pole, and turn them into crispy critters, and that was our job, and we were good at it. So after that, then I went to Hurlburt Eglinox 9, Florida, became an air commando, and here was our squadron. I was B flight here. I think that's me right there.
Yeah, that's definitely you.
And all my buds.
The way you're standing.
A, B, C, D flight. These are the head shed guys. Early on, our airplane learning to fly this big Skyraider. 25,000 pounds all up weight. You can see here the Vietnamese marking on the side of the airplane. It was a secret war. You won't see any flags on my flight suit or anything, but the first 3 months I was there, we had to have a Vietnamese airman in the right seat. They weren't pilots and couldn't speak English, but they were just brown bodies, if you will. If we crashed, then he was the pilot and I was the observer. And that was McNamara's Secret War. There I am, 125 pounds of romping, stomping badass with my Air Commando hat. We were the only ones. By now I'm a captain, late in 1965, already having flown the F-106 for 4 years. I was more experienced than a lot of the guys, especially coming out of flight school. I got my M16 here, and Tommy bought me one of those in my it's in my apartment, an M16A1, and then I have extra clips of ammunition, 20-round clips. We cut off our sleeves on our flight suits and moved the pocket up because it was so hot. In the summer, got to be 130 degrees in the cockpit, and you could loosen up the straps and roll up, run the canopy back, and put your arm out, and it would inflate the whole suit, and that's the only air conditioning we ever got. Here's another shot of one of my airplanes here, number 808. This is wall-to-wall napalm, and these are a couple of 100-pound white phosphorus bombs. It's a stick of dynamite in the middle of phosphorus, and it's really blows up to a huge degree. And I'm not sure if I have a picture here of that. I don't, but I have. Get me the one there with the white with the fire. That one, yeah. You can see when that goes off, 100-pound bomb, it really goes, and it showers sparks. It burns at 5,000
airplane there. So that's a pretty big explosion.
Degrees, 5,000 degrees. That'll bring them right out of their foxholes. So that was a real tiebreaker. It's a game over time if you can get close to where the mortars are. Here I am looking at the airplane. I don't see my camera in this picture. I guess John Larson took my camera and is taking this picture. There's my combat masterpiece right there in backwards.
Is that a revolver?
Yeah, Yeah, K-38, Smith & Wesson K-38 combat masterpiece. It was stolen from me along with my .22 Magnum Derringer when we left Colorado Springs. The movers stole it. Here's my guys that I trained with at Hurlburt. Bob Gallup, KIA, and Jim Harding, KIA, killed in action. The rest of the guys survived, and that's me there, and Carl Light and the guys. Here's my camera. Came back with 600 color slides, and I'm looking at the fuse to be sure it's intact. Everything is cool, and I never worried about pre-flighting the nuclear weapon, but I always was concerned, and from maybe that's why I'm still alive, because Jim Harding was killed in an airplane that had frag clusters on. Get me the upper left there. That's a 120-pound frag cluster. It's 20-pound bomblets, and it has a little spring in the front that stops the propeller from turning. And when you drop it, the rack comes apart, and all 6 weapons arm, and then the little propeller spins off, and then it's armed. That keeps you from blowing your wing off. Well, it was Easter Sunday, 1965. Jim went out. I was supervisor flying that day. I tucked him into the airplane, and he went out, and that thing had a little spring which keeps the propeller from turning when you're flying. It's because you don't want premature arming. That's what happened. This is Korean War stuff brought back out of storage, and it was rusty, and the little spring tab broke off in flight, and the propeller spun off. Now it's armed.
And you don't know it.
You don't know it. You have no way of knowing that. You can't see it from the cockpit. And anyway, you got 6 to pick from, at 6 times a 6, 36, whatever. There's a lot of them out there. And as soon as you release it, they all bang together, and boom, it went off and blew its wing off. Blew off the left wing. That one right there. That's probably that picture of his final thing. Ouch. He was a good guy too. Great guy, Jim Harding. This is my Tien Dat, D-A-T, my Tien Dat. He was a good guy. We trained some of these guys, checked them out in the Sky Raider, taught them formation, and gave them their first combat. They would ride with us in the right seat, or ultimately they'd go out and fly, and we'd go in their right seat. And it was interesting because I was the only guy in the squadron that would fly with 3 other students. And it was nearly my demise too, because one day we had one student, Lop, L-A-P, Lop, and he was weak, little bitty guy, cushions underneath him, cushions behind him, and could hardly reach the rudder pedals. We're doing pitch outs and rejoins. So he was leading the second element. I'm leading, and another one is 2, and then that is 3. He was good. I could totally trust him. And then Lop is 4. So we go out, pitch out, rejoin, 5 seconds. Okay, start a turn, come around, 2's in, just like what we do today. 3's in, okay, and Lop's having trouble. So I turned into him a little bit, help him out. Here he comes. He's on a true collision course. And he's going to hit us and take out all 4 airplanes. And I said, Dot, I said, we got a collision course. We're coming up. We're coming up, 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 up. And I started like that. He went right under us. Right under us at way too much cutoff. And I was pissed off. I said, Dot, you take your element. You take number 2. And Lop, you come with me. Get on my wing. And we did 10 pitch outs and rejoins and did it. And then I took him back and down and pinked him. And I said, I don't want to ever fly with him again. We'd already had one other time. He taxied into an L-19 forward air controller, a mid-ramp, and stuck the gun barrel through his wing. I've got a picture in my scrapbook about that. And one time we landed, and I'm in the right seat, watching him. He landed right behind me, and he lost control of it, went off the runway to the right, retracted the gear. I said, oh, shit. And so I shut down the runway, and I turned right around and came back, shut down the runway, taxied back to him, jumped out, and said, I said, Dot, go ahead and take the airplane back, take the other 2 back. And I jumped out of the runway and went over and ran up to the end of the runway, he was out in the dirt there. He comes running off. He comes running off the end of the wing and jumped right into my arms. He said, did I do okay? Did I do okay? I said, well, we didn't hurt the airplane too bad. I think it's repairable. And so then I got in the airplane, shut everything down, and got a free ride back to the squadron. But it was something new every day. Here's some more pictures of airplanes.
Is that 3 airplanes there, looks like?
Yeah.
And down below is pretty neat. Something's blown up, and I see vortices off the wing. Somebody's pulling hard, huh?
Yeah, that's napalm.
How do you get that shot?
Over the side, we're doing a formation like this. There are 4 of us. Lead would bomb. Okay, 2 bombers. Lead and 2, and then 2 napalmers, 3 and 4. So we'd size up the target, and then lead comes through and bombs, and number 3, the lead napalmer comes through the other day. As the crap hits the ground, boom, boom, and then the napalmer goes the other way. And then you around the circle, and now number 2 is the bomber comes this way, and number 4, who's the other napalmer, pulls up like this, boom, and goes the other way. So you never strafe without napalming, and you never napalm without bombing first. You got to soften the target up, or you get. That's when we got our bad hits, when we didn't soften the target up. Normally you bomb, napalm, and rockets, and then we do strafe. We had 800 rounds of 20 Mike in the airplane. 4 guns firing simultaneously would put out 50 rounds per second. 50 rounds per second. Here is the one on this side. That's me in the cockpit. That's 1 gun there, 1 gun here, 1 inside the fold, and 1 outside the fold. And then these are iron bombs, and that's a white phosphorus there.
So you had 8 guns?
4. 1, 2 on that side.
Oh, and 2 on the other.
On the other side.
On the other wing, yeah.
Here I'm giving a thumbs up there. This is an interesting picture at Quignon, 1965. That's a 500-pound bomb that fell off on takeoff. And it just, you could never set up anything like this. My God, everybody should have been killed. But it was airmen walking along the runway, and he said, oh, our hooches were down at one end, and we had to walk to the other end of the runway where the airplanes were. And this was all pierced steel planking. It's like this here. It's all PSP, Marston mat it's called. And this damn bomb fell off and boom, hit up in the air like that and hit again and on the tail, hit on the nose. It kept digging up a whole bunch of the runway every time it hit. Didn't explode, but it sheared off all the safety stuff on these fuses up here. You see, it sheared off all of that, and the next time it would have hit on its nose, it would have set the bomb off and got him and the photographer too, the young airman. So
you send the EOD guys out to go get their damn bomb?
Yeah, issue it back to the taxpayers. Good, and send the engineers out to replace the runway stuff, because we still had airplanes airborne coming and going. But this was air commando shit.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, we got a bomb crater in the middle of the runway.
Land on the other side.
Stay to one side or the other, or straddle it, but don't get hung up. It's going to ruin your. Don't get a main gear in there. It's going to ruin your whole day. Here's another thing that happened. This is battle damage. This is a hell of a thing. This was Doyle Ruff's airplane. He stumbled across a 57 millimeter flak sight, and it blew the right flap off, and holding the left wing, you could stand up. I've got a picture of him standing up with his head through that, and you can see there's flak damage everywhere. We had 2,000 pounds of armor plating all around the cockpit and the engine too.
You used all of that.
But that's another day at the beach. So it's always exciting. There's another picture of a rat race. Here we're flying in the middle air combat. After Dwayne Rice was the flight leader. He was the flight commander. And here we are doing air combat. I'm number 3, obviously. I've got a wingman, and he's pulling like that. And I'm taking a picture while we're actually fighting. We go to 10,000 feet. If nobody was leaking, and no hung bombs, and the guns that were safe, and nothing leaking into the obvious flak damage, then we'd climb to 10,000 feet and go 2v2, 2 versus 2, and come like this, right at the merge, okay, like this. We separate by 4 or 5 miles, and once you pass like that, then boom, everybody goes up and around and around and up and down, and it's the last one to die wins. And we'd fight and fight and fight until, when you're turning hard, this thing goes down. I don't care how much pressure, how much horsepower you're using, that would be all of it. But 2,800, but you're pulling hard and trying to maneuver, and you're going down, down, down. Pretty soon you end up in the trees. We climb back up to 10,000 feet and do it again and again. We're the only flight that ever did that, as far as I know.
And you're going to take a picture in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
God damn it, Dwelle, what are you doing?
Yeah, I should have been paying attention. I was paying attention, sir. This had one guy on my ass. As far as I knew, he was friendly. That'd be my wingman. Just how I like it. This was 17th of May, 1985. And I got a letter.
18 May 1965.
19.
65.
Yes, it was. This picture was the 18th of May. It actually happened the 17th of May, 1965. I think that's correct because I have a letter from your mother.
Oh, we can ignore that one for
And
now.
it's dated the 17th.
Dated 17 May, yep.
So you can see this was a B-57 bomber that blew up.
Oops.
And that's reinforced concrete, more than a foot thick, like 18 inches. Here's one of the Sky Raiders that we lost. And look at it. It's a strike. It's a write-off. Here's the loaded with bombs, which they just dropped right on the ground. That's a dead pilot right there, wrapped in a parachute. And
so this was somebody just on the ramp or taxiing, or?
no, this was out on the ramp. We lost 10 B-57s and like 10 or 12 Sky Raiders. Well, one of ours, but like 10 Vietnamese Sky Raiders out on the ramp, and 33 guys dead. We just had a Navy Crusader, F-8 Crusader land. It was Sunday morning, and he landed with a hung bomb. They wouldn't let him go back aboard the aircraft carrier out in the Gulf of Tonkin, so he diverted in with a hung bomb. And I don't know what happened. We still to this day don't know what happened. It could be that hung bomb had an anti-withdrawal fuse on it that our guys were not familiar with. Because an anti-withdrawal fuse, that goes on a bomb that has a time delay fuse. You know, you drop it in there, and the little people were good at digging that up and converting it into a trap, you know, to their own use. But with an anti-withdrawal fuse, as soon as you try to remove the fuse, it sets the bomb off, and that gets pretty exciting. They got real tired of that. This might have been one of those bombs, or it might have been a kind of a Navy fuse that our guys were not familiar with. I don't know, but
Wouldn't they have brought that to an area? You didn't have a safe area for where shit's going to blow up?
No, hell no. We should have. That's a good point, because all around this area were bombs. I don't think I have a picture here, but in the middle of this 20 airplanes, 25 airplanes out there, was at a slight ramp, a slight degrade, and this whole line of 10 B-57 twin jet bombers, British Canberra, one blew up. Each airplane had 2,000 gallons of fuel, 2,000 rounds of 20 millimeter, and a whole buttload, like 16 500-pound bombs, a lot of them. And this thing would blow up, and the engines would go. They're underslung engines, and it was good. We got one engine out in the hooch area, in the cantonment area, which was out here. But this thing blows up, and the engines are up above the bomb bay in the middle, and the engines up here, and the engines would go that way. We got one out into the housing area, went right through one of the guys' bunks just down from me. It was Sunday morning. He was a devout Catholic. He was at church.
Good man.
He went to church.
Good man.
And scared the bejesus out of everybody, and we all went to church the rest of that day, I'll tell you that. But that was an exciting day. General Greer calls me every month. It might have been the 18th of May. I kind of think it was. I think maybe your mama got the date quite wrong. She was pretty upset, I can tell from the letter. So, back to the Civvy Street, and I'd been in NATO when I retired flying the F-15 with the Soesterberg, the bunch, 32nd TAC Fighter Squadron at Soesterberg, Netherlands, Holland, and flying with these guys, and God, what fun it was. And so then we got into the T6 and the air show business, and I can't tell which one I am here. Probably.
You both got pretty good smoke. Normally you can tell by the smoke.
I think I was leading that day.
No doubt.
And then here's critical mass after we were started racing.
Okay, here is stuff. Who's in the picture? Ken, Chris Farina, and Scott Carter.
Yeah.
And you're chalked, so you're still just sitting there running plugged into the APU, looks like. Or tied down, even.
No, we never tied them down.
What's that thing right there?
No, plugged in.
Oh, that's a crack in the concrete.
Oh, that's right. Exactly right.
Didn't look right. That's a big motor, so big canopy, short tail, a little bit of gap between the rudder and the top.
That's a big tail, but inflamed from the back seat.
No. This was the new smaller tail with the new airfoil that worked better. Big canopy, which went first. Then we did the tail and the new motor. That's the rear bear. That's the rear bear exhaust. So that's the big motor with the little tail.
Yeah.
Those two came together.
Now back to Civvy Street.
And the thing.
Retired in '82. It's now '84, and I founded the new transportation division. Built one truck, and then two more, and then three. And in the end, when we sold Flyers Energy, we had 200 trucks. 200 trucks, most of them fuel trucks. And this would be our first jet. That's
it's 5 Bravo
TBM,
5BR, 5 Bravo Romeo.
Yeah, that's a TBM.
TBM 700A model.
Yes, yeah. And then we got a 900. Gotta love that airplane.
850.
It had steam-driven gauges mostly, but the new avionics, and life was good. Life was good.
Anything else in that book?
No, that's
the end of the stories.
No, not quite. The
oh
end
wait,
of the story.
shit! Always one more.
Here's the back. This is you, Tom. Pretty good formation, but your prop is a little out of sync with me.
Yeah.
Get it right, mate. This is a composite, which photographer did. It was a Memorial Day, and me flying past the flag. He wasn't able to catch that just like that, so he photoshopped it. And then here we are, typical air show. This would be Big Jim.
Jim Booth.
Jim Booth leading. I'm on the right wing. And this would be Bob.
Yep, Bob Lessman.
And
probably Chuck Wall over there, if I had to guess.
Chuck Wall, yeah.
That was the normal crew.
There we are. So that's it. Now you're smart as I am. That's
all right.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I still talk to Aftab many Saturdays.
He's still kicking around?
Oh yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'll note him on this video.
I went to back to Canada. He came in for a daughter's wedding, and I went there. Peggy wouldn't go. She said, "No, I'm not going to go there and talk to a bunch of freaking natives and try to speak their language." No, wasn't like that at all. Their English is every bit as good as ours.
Queen's English, right?
Wonderful people. We'd go out at night to eat.
She just didn't need to go to another damn fighter pilot event. That's about it.
If we weren't eating at somebody's house, then we'd go out to eat in Canada. What's the big city in Canada?
You west or east?
No, east. The capital.
Well, capital's like Ontario, isn't it?
Yeah, Ontario. Yeah. And all the rich Pakistanis, they live in Ontario, and they're I don't know how they got rich, but they are. And we go out to eat at night. Do you think we'd eat in a Pakistani a restaurant? No. Afghan food is very much better. We'd go to the Afghan restaurants, and it was wonderful. God, what fun. So after he has property, he wants me to come visit. I said, I want to go to Kashmir. Tom, no, no. He said, that's a very dangerous place to go. You don't want. I can show you places more beautiful than Kashmir. I said, Aftab, do you think you can protect me? He said, of course I can. He said, you have to carry a wallet with you with some money in it, and that's all, maybe a fake ID or something, and keep it so when you get robbed, you just give them that and go on about your business, and keep your real wallet hid out somewhere under the hook to the muffler or something under the car. And life is good, but I'm trying to get him into the country. He wants to come to Hawaii and visit us, so
that'd be fun.
Maybe we will. But they are delightful people, and indeed, he's like a brother to me. He was my roommate for 6 months, and been in contact ever since. He plays golf every week with his general buddies, also retired. And I was able to find him over the years through an Indian that I met at the Capital City Air Show. And he owns a flight organization teaching people to fly over in Napa Valley. And turns out his father was friends of the father Indian that flew the French Mystère Indian airplane that Aftab shot down. And so they got together and called to Peshawar or Karachi and said, Aftab, I have this message from an American fighter pilot who wants to talk to you. And he says, I don't know what his name is. And so he said, I'm having golf with this general. Afterwards, playing golf, and this other general comes. He said, Aftab, I have this message from my Indian friend for you to call this guy. So he calls me. And he said, hello? And I said, hello. He said, who's this? I said, who's that? He said, I asked you first. And I can start to recognize his voice. He said, will you tell me who you are, and then I'll tell you. No. This is my call. I tell you who he said, we have to honor the protocol here. He said, I tell you that you have to tell me first. And I said, all right, I'll tell you who I am. I was at Bartow Air Base, Florida, 1959. And we lived in, the squadron was Bravo 2. And I had a Pakistani roommate who sounds very much like you. And we learned to fly, and we had a lot of fun together. And I bet you are Mr. Aftab. And he said, Tom, is that you? Is that you? I said, it is. And so we got together in Canada, and I took this book along, and I got all these pictures out of my scrapbook, and there's more of him. We didn't discuss that, but I always knew he was going to be a good pilot because he would fly around the apartment on his rug, and he was real good at that. And here he is with Jack Graham, the instructor. And I don't remember, he's one of these here. And I'm in that.
Is that the other side of the same picture?
Yeah, that's the other side.
That's the other side of the picture.
Jack Graham. This was our air base, Bartow, Florida, and that's the tweet. That's a good flying airplane.
Yep. That's the way it was.
Good
All right. That's your Tuesday update, January 10th, 2023. We went a little longer than 5 minutes, but that's the way it goes these days. Cheers, everybody.